It's me again, welcoming back to the stage, Niala Boodhoo. Good morning again. I was going to say, if you're not sick of my voice by the end of this hour, I host our Axios podcast, One Big Thing, where I am in conversation with different leaders. Everyone from 2 weeks ago, the head of the new Conservative Climate Caucus, to last week, a woman who's called the godmother of AI, talking about robotics, AI language. And I'll give you a little sneak peek. This Thursday's episode is actually going to be about bird watching and citizen science. So wherever you get your podcasts, One Big Thing. I'd like to welcome our next guest this morning. He's the Executive Director of LSU's Institute for Energy Innovation, Brad Ives. Good morning. Thanks for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So I want to start with some congratulations. An LSU-led consortium a few months ago was awarded the largest ever competitive grant from the National Science Foundation. Let's talk big picture about what you're hoping to achieve with this enormous amount of money that's been given to y'all. Well, that's a big group, right?
Yes. So what you're talking about is the future use of energy in Louisiana, which shortens to fuel. And it was a $160 million grant from the National Science Foundation. And as I think you're aware, I'm fairly new to LSU, so I can't claim credit for having done all the hard work to get it in here. But I'm really excited about what we're going to be able to do with that money. It's going to, it's not all coming at once. It's going to be staged over a 10-year period. So we know what the first two installments of that are, and recently had a kickoff meeting with people from all over Louisiana. So this is going to go to adding faculty at four-year colleges and universities in the state, as well as the technical and community colleges, to help with entrepreneurialism around the energy transition. And we have also got the ability to spin technologies out and develop new technologies. And this is something that, from my perspective, I'm very interested in, because this is going to be the key to a lot of what we do with the transition. So we're going to be looking for new solutions, like we just heard a discussion of recycling plastics. We've had some serious breakthroughs in this sector, but we need to do more in that. We need to find more cost-effective ways to reuse the petroleum that we've already taken out of the ground so that we can cycle that over and over again. So that's just one example.
As we think about, as you said, you're new to this position, the Institute for Energy Innovation. What are your goals when it comes to the transition? What would you like to see? What are sort of your major focuses you'd like the Institute to be working on?
Well, overall, we want to lower carbon emissions. Our goal is to help the economy get to carbon neutrality. That takes a lot of different forms. And at the same time, we've got to make sure that it's sustainable, really in two senses. There's environmental sustainability, but we also have to have economic sustainability. So how can we use this to actually make people's lives better environmentally, but also financially? So with these two overarching goals, we then get down into, how do you do that? What's it all about? Some of it's going to be very focused on taking emissions from industries like steel and concrete that will be very hard to eliminate, and sequestering those. So carbon capture and sequestration is an important thrust. Another will be looking at the existing infrastructure. How do we reuse that? A lot of the thermal infrastructure, things that are currently powered by natural gas, could be powered by hydrogen. Hydrogen burns clean because it doesn't have any carbon associated with it. So developing ways to create hydrogen, to transport hydrogen, because that's a real challenge. It's a very small molecule that can sort of sneak through our typical pipeline infrastructure. And then how do we actually use that in these thermal applications? But it'll be other things like looking at enhanced geothermal, which is a really interesting idea of tapping into the Earth's heat sort of anywhere on Earth and using that to create process heat that could be used. It's also wind and solar to decarbonize the electrical grid, because that's going to be one of the biggest challenges we have here in Louisiana. But it can also be one of the places where we can make gains the fastest.
I want to get to the offshore wind. We were just talking about that, but I wanted to ask you about the carbon sequestration. We were just talking about communities around the fence line, right? And I know when you're talking about carbon sequestration in particular, I assume you're talking about Lake Maurepas and the project there, we've seen community groups voice criticism about, they worry about the safety of storage under this shallow body of water. What do you think the Institute's role is in sort of helping move this conversation forward?
Well, big picture, the Institute's going to be very focused on what are called community benefit plans. The Biden administration and putting all of this new federal money to work in the energy transition has something called the Justice 40 initiative, where they want to see 40% of the benefit of the money that's coming into these projects flowing to historically underserved communities and communities in areas that have not seen the benefits in the past of energy development. And at the LSU Institute for Energy Innovation, we're highly focused on this. My first hire was a very well-regarded professor who has a lot of experience working on community benefit planning and community engagement, Dr. Margaret Reams, and she did this in the Superfund context because it was a similar set of issues. So in bringing in Dr. Reams, we're really highly focused, and we want to engage a lot of the community organizations. We want to work with companies to see, what can they do. In the past, it's been, we're going to build something and we're going to come in and put in a new playground, maybe a new park, or buy a fire truck. We've really got to move beyond this to think about how do we create employment opportunities for those communities? How do we ensure safety in those communities? We've done this in the context of natural gas pipelines. We've done it in the context of oil and gas exploration. There's no reason that we can't do this around carbon sequestration as well. Now, in particular in Lake Maurepas, the Institute, in our first round of funding that came out last fall, one of the projects that we're working on is looking at water quality in Louisiana, and specifically at Lake Maurepas. So we've partnered with the company that's developing that site to make sure that as they drill wells for carbon sequestration and go through the aquifer, it's the kind of the very top of, they're going to be sequestering way down here, but their risk in drilling through where we're getting drinking water from. But we can do that the right way. So we need to, first of all, make sure we're using the right techniques to do the drilling. Secondly, make sure that we're monitoring the water quality there to see if there are any problems. So like I said, this is where we've got one of LSU's top researchers in water quality working on this so we can ensure that we do it the right way. We can explain to the community what's going on. We can listen to their fears and address those. We also can ensure that as this industry develops, we do it in a very safe way, and we learn from past mistakes and make sure that those don't get repeated.
So Brad, when you talk about the community and trust, I think everyone in this room is aware that the Institute was initially funded by Shell, and that's been criticized.